Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live, episode 63. We're almost ready for the senior discount. I am Jim, joined as always by Tom. Tom, how you doing today?
I'm great. Senior discount's interesting because a couple more episodes we're going to be ready for retirement, but let's not say that.
We're not planning on retiring, so we don't think, anyways. Funny story, actually. You saying that makes me think. So there was another guy named Jim that works for the organization that I do. This has been probably 3-4 years ago. Who'd worked there quite a while and was retiring, and he worked in our national office. And so an email went out about his retirement. I think they were doing like a card shower. You could share thoughts with him, send him a card, whatever. And it went out to everybody who worked for the organization that I work for. And this coworker of mine, who works in another department within the organization, but we certainly know each other, comes up to me at another event at the place where we work. She comes up to me and says, "Congratulations." And I said, "On what?" And she said, "You're retiring." And I sat there and looked at her, and it wasn't clicking with me like what was happening yet. And I said, "Do you know something I don't know? Like, should I be talking to my boss?" And she's like, "The email that came out." I'm like, "No, that's Jim," and gave his name, who is like 67. I said, "How old do you think I am?" So, yeah, she thought I was retiring, which I am not at an age anywhere close to that. Nor do I have the financial resources to retire, or I would. But unless I win in Powerball, it's not happening anytime soon in my life. How about you, Tom? Got that retirement plan all kicked up for a couple years from now?
Not a couple years. No. We're playing the long game for sure.
Playing the long game. Yeah, I think that's what most of us are doing in life. So, well, we've got a few things to chat about today. One of which we just didn't get a chance to talk about last week, I think because we hadn't maybe seen things, if I remember right, and we had a lot of other things we wanted to talk about. But we want to talk about some AEW today because, frankly, it's Tom and I's favorite thing in wrestling right now. So I think that's still true for Tom. I know it's true for me. So we didn't get a chance to chat through last week, but pulling up the results here, I've got them. Oh, yes. So last week's Dynamite. Holy stuff. Starts off with the 8-man tag with the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Adam Cole, baby, against Danielson, Christian Cage, and Jurassic Express. There we go. I don't know why I was coming up with a hard time with that name. So that 8-man tag started off, and it was crazy. It was high spot after high spot, crazy amount of moves, quote unquote, with a Z on it, I guess. But it was a great match, I thought, to start off the show. I know we've had some folks, some friends of ours, who have thought that it's a little bit weird that AEW seems to be starting out with kind of main event matches at the beginnings of shows, which has been I understand why they do it on Rampage. I think it's a Saturday night's main event style on Rampage, where they want to put the best thing out first because it's later at night. But I don't mind them doing it on Dynamite either, especially when every week there's like 2 or 3 matches that could be main events on the show. So you've got that 8-man tag to start, and then they have the ladder match to finish the show, which we'll talk about as we kind of go through things. But that 8-man tag, I thought, was an amazing start to Dynamite to kick off the show. I know, Tom, you weren't there for a minute. Are you back?
Yes, I am. Yep.
There you are.
Yeah.
What do you think about the start of last week's Dynamite?
It was hot. And one thing that I think they're doing really well, and they've actually done this with Roads to the Top too, and it started with Sammy Guevara's title win, is they're teasing out things. So like, I want to say like the entrances for this show, they teased them on either on social or on YouTube or somewhere. Like they wanted you to come and get excited, like because these guys were in the ring ready to go, right?
Okay,
and like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So and again, framing it back to the Guevara title win,
right.
when he won, they did an interview on like the first commercial break of Roads to the Top. And that's when
I thought that was brilliant, actually. Yeah, because they want people to watch Roads for the Top, obviously, too. If you were like, I don't think I'm going to watch that. Oh, but they're going to talk to Sammy in the first one. Now I'm going to watch at least through the first commercial break and maybe end up just watching the whole show then.
Yeah. No, so this start was was super, super cool. And what a fun match. I apologize. I was dealing with some stuff in the background here as we were launching this morning. Again, it's ironic because we talked for nearly an hour before we hit record. So, it's just the universe in play. I don't know, man. Everything about and I think we joked, and I don't remember if this was online or not, or on recording or not. The elite, the super elite, the super click, the click of the elite, the double tap click, super kick, elite, super trap, whatever.
Up, down, down. No, wait, that's somebody else.
Yeah. Anyway, whichever combination of guys that you have here, they've been fun, and again, you can tell they love each other. They have great camaraderie. They want to entertain. Seeing them go at it, it's been great.
Yeah, and I agree. Super fun match to start. I have to say, like, Bryan Danielson right now is so pumped up every time he's in that ring. Like, the energy he exudes in his matches. Not that he didn't at the end in WWE, he did. But I don't know. It just seems like it's on another level right now. Like, you can tell he's just jazzed to be able to do what he wants, the way he wants, with the freedom he has. I'm loving it. I'm loving every time he steps in the ring, and he's got 2 big matches scheduled for this weekend, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, probably. Loving every bit of it. Speaking of one of those people he's going to be facing later this weekend is Bobby Fish. We saw him make his in-ring debut for AEW and have since learned that he has signed with AEW. So Bobby Fish is in. I got to admit, I didn't see that coming. I thought Bobby Fish would end up back in Ring of Honor, to be perfectly honest. I thought that was or back at the PC as a coach if he didn't want to keep working. So I didn't see AEW coming for Bobby Fish. That one surprised me a little bit, but I thought he looked good with Sammy. I thought he and Sammy had a good match. Anything you thought, Tom?
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought it was a really competitive match. Again, we talked about when I kind of spoke to the surprise that I thought of Miro losing the title to Sammy, and maybe that it was going to be a quick transition, and maybe it still will. Again, Bobby Fish, I didn't think to be that guy, but how and what they're going to do with Sammy Guevara going forward, and Miro as well, seems to is something of high interest to me. So I'm excited.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we have not heard from Miro officially. I mean, I know he's been on Twitter and stuff, but on Dynamite or Rampage, we have not heard from Miro since.
That is correct. That is correct. Yep.
I think that's going to be very interesting to see. What do they, do they hold him out a little bit? Do we get Sammy and Miro again a full year maybe or something?
That would make a lot of sense.
Right.
It also would make sense to go a different direction too, because that's the one thing with AEW I feel is they don't necessarily go, this is the trope, the pro wrestling trope, right? So
100%. They don't always follow that, and sometimes I've called them to task for it, but they've more often than not, even when they've zigged when I thought they should have zagged, it's worked. They've made it work. So kudos to them. That's part of what I love about them is sometimes they do things that I don't understand, but they've earned my trust to go, okay, I'm going to let this play out and see. Like, I can say right now, I don't love this thing happened. And we talked about this with like the Hangman Page thing. I didn't love that thing happening, but in the end, I enjoyed Christian Cage and Kenny Omega. Our friend who does some work with them said that we would be happy when it happened. And he was right. I was okay with it. I still want to see Hangman Page and Kenny Omega too, which is also what they want, is for me to still want to see that. And we'll talk more about that maybe here in just a little bit. But Darby and Nick Comoroto, it was fine. Darby, so here's my only thing with that. Darby, obviously, they're programming with MJF, which I think is I love 2 young lions going at it. I think that's going to be really good. I don't know that I needed the thing about his dead uncle being brought into it. But you got to figure Darby was the one who pitched that, or at least is okay with it. So, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that really, MJF as a character in the way he takes those shots, he appears to me to have almost unencumbered liberty on the mic when it comes to, and again, I know that these guys are all professionals and they're probably having a shared understanding about what's safe and what's not safe and what's touchable, what's not touchable before they go to the ring and before they do these segments. But there's something completely different about MJF and how and again, it goes back to when the build for the Brian Pillman match was happening, when they were in Cincinnati, and now this. What I do think is interesting is, Darby had the Punk thing and a little bit of like the 2.0 Daniel Garcia thing. I'm having a hard time recalling right now, as much as I love AEW, just keeping track of all of the moving parts, what Darby's last, it was Ethan Page. So I apologize. I just remembered as I was talking. So his last big major feud was Ethan Page. And he wins that feud. And then he kind of has the 2.0 Daniel Garcia space, and then the Punk, and now this. I think it's really interesting to program him with MJF. Conversely, I think it's interesting that they're programming MJF with him, because the pillars conversation that came up in a promo a few weeks ago, the 4 pillars of AEW for the future are MJF, Darby, Jungle Boy. Do you remember the 4th? I'm forgetting it right now. It's another young guy.
Sammy?
Is it? Maybe it's Sammy. I think it is Sammy. And I would agree with that in terms of when you think about 10 years from now, who are going to be the main event players. I think all 4 of those guys, plus others, I'm certain.
Oh, absolutely.
With the value and with the level of importance that AEW still gives to wins and losses, this feud, before it's even really unfolding, because we're going to get to a point where they have a match. It seems like it's setting MJF to get the win here, and that's okay, because I think if there's any talent in AEW who can afford to lose all the time and never be hurt, it's Darby Allin. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm having a hard time going, is this the right time? Like, and is this part of a bigger argument that there's just too many pieces in the toy box for Tony Khan and for AEW?
Yeah, I think so. If I have to assume these two are going to work at each other at full gear, MJF and Darby. I have to admit, when we get to our head-to-head on that, like looking at it right now as the story plays out over the next couple of weeks, maybe that will push me a direction or two. This will be a coin flip, because it will come down to, do I think this is a one-time match, or do I think this is going to be an ongoing feud? That probably will determine who I would think would win that match, because I agree. Like, MJF has been incredibly protected, and I think still has only lost 2 singles matches, and that was Moxley and Jericho. That's big time if you put Darby Allin in the, now he's the 3rd, which I could see them doing. So I think that's going to be interesting. The one thing that annoyed me slightly at the end of this match, and it annoyed me, but it's not like, whatever, was they had QT Marshall come in after the match, and he drops Sting with a diamond cutter, and Sting just completely no-sells it, stands up and hits him with the Scorpion Death Drop. I actually thought they should have had Sting sell the thing, because now if Marshall hits it in any other match, you've just downgraded everybody else that it actually puts down. Like, I thought him hitting it and then running out of the ring, would have been fine, and how dastardly QT Marshall is, and I can't believe he did that. And even if you had Sting, I'm not saying they had to knock him out and have him play dead for 20 minutes or anything, but I don't know. I just didn't love the 62-year-old guy completely no-selling. I realize QT Marshall isn't a main eventer, but he's a piece you're using, and he's a piece you're using as a dastardly heel. I'd have been totally fine if they went next week to Darby and Sting versus QT and Kamaroto, and then have Sting drop him next week and get his win, whatever. I don't know. It just annoyed me that 62-year-old Sting completely no-sold the diamond cutter. That's, or 60 whatever year old Sting. I think it's 62. Yeah, that is what it is. Soapbox for a moment there. Serena Deeb, Hikaru Shida. I thought this was great. And I loved the ending. So they first bring out a trophy that has Hikaru Shida's name on it already, that says first to 50 wins, because they were promoting that if Shida won, that was the thing. She was going to be the first to 50 wins. So they already had a trophy made with Shida's name on it. I would be very interested. What I didn't hear them talk about was like, who's second on that list? Is anybody even close to 50?
I'm looking right now. Nyla Rose is at 45.
So not that far behind.
Yeah, Nyla Rose is at 45. Ty Conti 39, and then Britt's at 33.
Interesting. I wouldn't have put Ty Conti in the top 3 at that, but she got a lot of dark and dark elevation wins back in the day too. So, and they booked her really well. They've made Ty Conti another one of those WWE couldn't figure out what to do with an NXT, and AEW went, you could just have talent look good and win matches. That's a thing you can do. Like they didn't even get super creative with Ty Conti. They just let her win. Crazy how that works, huh? And then connected her with Anna Jay and the Dark Order a little bit. So, but okay, so Nyla Rose is at 45. Let's be honest, Nyla Rose not winning a ton of matches right now, but only would have to win 4 to get to where Shida is, and then you could have the race to 50. That could actually be interesting to do. But I loved that. They didn't do a promo with Serena. I assume we'll probably get that this weekend. But to me, it was Serena was saying, you already had this trophy made. You had a foregone conclusion that I was going to lose, and I didn't lose. I beat you because I'm better than you. And that's why she smashed the trophy over her head. I love the
she walloped her good. That was
She did. I don't know if that thing was gimmicked to break the way it did or not. It probably was. But she walloped her good, or if she didn't, it looked like she walloped her good, which is even better if that's what happened. But whew. I like heel Serena because I feel like Serena is just kind of, she was injured for a while now, but even as NWA champion, like I kind of feel like she was there, and you always knew she was going to have a good match, but there wasn't a lot of character in what she was doing. I'm interested to see this. I like it. And Serena Deeb, 2-3 years ago, somebody would have said Serena Deeb is somebody I'd look forward to watching week in and week out. Not that I liked Serena Deeb back in the Straight Edge Society days and that I enjoyed her, but if you would have told me in 2021, I'd be looking forward to seeing what Serena Deeb was doing in the ring, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But man, she's good. And Sheeta's one of the top workers in the world, man or woman, I think right now. Sheeta's great.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. So as I was watching that play out, clearly there's now motivation to have these two do this again. Does Shida get the 50th win over someone else and not Deeb, but then Deeb holds that over her head, right? And even if she does get to 50, does she continue to lose to Deeb until somehow, some way they put something else at stake?
In some ways, I almost I don't know. Some people would have a problem with this. So, and maybe I'm Vince Russo booking here. I don't think I'm Vince Russo booking here, but what if you have Shida beat Kylan King or somebody like that, like very lower level, maybe wins a match on Dark every 6 times they're out, but doesn't, has maybe 5 wins overall in AEW. And I don't know how many Serena has because she was kind of in and out, when she was with the NWA stuff, and then she got hurt, unfortunately. But Serena Deeb is obviously, regardless of how many wins she has, she's far higher on the totem pole than a Kylan King, let's say, or a Maddie Renkowski or somebody like that. But you have Shida beat them, and then you have Deeb saying, you couldn't beat somebody at the top of the hill like me. You had to go and beat Kylan King, which I realize kind of downplays Kylan King, but let's be honest, they're not doing anything with her right now. You can always rebuild her down the road if you want to make her featured in the future, and I think they do. I think she's somebody she's a project for them, to work down the road. A couple of years from now, Kylan King might be one of the top wrestlers in the women's division. I don't know. That would be interesting to have Shida get that 50th win, but almost have it be almost slightly heelish in that she gets that 50th win against somebody. Yeah, of course she was going to beat that person, and have Deeb, you just wanted the glory. See, I was right, because the best heels are when they actually believe that they're right, and actually when you even look at it and go, they've got a little bit of a point, but they're going about it the wrong way, and they shouldn't be a jerk, and they shouldn't be cheating, and they shouldn't be hitting people with trophies, whatever. PSA: there's never a reason to hit somebody with a trophy, people. So I think it'll be interesting. I think that could play out well. And the other thing I love, and AEW is doing a really nice job of this right now, and they need to when they're adding in the TBS Championship, which I guess we didn't talk about. Was that this week or last week? Or
they announced that in the early part of this Dynamite that we're talking about.
Okay, so they announced the TBS Championship, so we didn't talk about that. I guess secondary women's title, although they're being very clear that it's like the TNT title, it's not a secondary title. Blah 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 blah. It is, but you can book a secondary title where it doesn't have to feel like one. And I think they've done a good job with that with the TNT title. You look at ECW, the ECW TV title was just as important as the ECW World title because they booked it. Paul Heyman booked it that way. I think Tony Khan's done a nice job with the TNT belt that way. So you can with the TBS. I love that they're giving women who are not in the world title story other things happening. So you have Deeb and Sheeta, you have Thunder Rosa, Nyla Rose, and Jade Cargill having their beef. You know, there's different things happening with some of the women. So it's not just Britt Baker and her challenger of the month. I think that's good. And I think if they're going to have two titles in that division, they've got to be able to do that.
And I like that they also are not saying these are lesser than titles.
Right.
The challenge I find in that is how the wording of the title is given. So, for example, when you call it the Women's World title or the AEW World title, you're not calling it the TBS World title or the TNT World. Like the insertion of the word world title means you are the champion of the world in that division. So, and again, I'm not advocating for them to take away from that, but I feel like that's a sticking point that will forever remain. So even if you say we're not booking them as anything other than equal, the name connotation assigned creates that intentionally or unintentionally.
Where ECW, I believe it was the World TV title. Ring of Honor is the World TV title. World TNT title sounds weird.
It does.
So I understand why they don't do it. And I also realize there's a branding thing going on, obviously, there with their partners in Warner Media and blah, blah. I mean, that's duh.
Yeah, the logos on the belts are matching the logos of their if you pull up your station guide when you go to that channel.
They look sharp in that way. Yeah. Glad they got rid of the red strap when they started with TNT. That was but so if you had to guess, we haven't seen brackets yet or anything. I hope they do a 16-woman tournament. Don't do 8, do 16. And start this thing like now. And then I would assume the TBS title is the finals are the first Rampage that's on TBS January 5th. That makes sense to me, right? So do a 16-woman tournament, spread it out. You got plenty of time between now and then, so you don't have to have 4 matches. Don't show them on your YouTube shows. None of the tournament matches should happen on your YouTube shows. Have them on Rampage. Have them on Dynamite. You got 3 hours of TV every week. Make it work. If you had to just throw a dart today, who's winning that tournament, Tom?
I want it to be Jade Cargill because I don't want Jade Cargill to unseat Britt Baker.
Jade's my pick, too. That's that bitch show, as she says, which... that didn't work.
TBS.
Yeah, right. I understand that bitch, you got to come up with something else. That show didn't work. I don't know. I think that's Jade's belt to win at this point because obviously they're hugely behind Jade. She's coming along in the ring. She should not be the one to beat Britt. Or if she is the one to beat Britt, that shouldn't be for like a year from now.
Yeah.
She's not ready to be that champion. Maybe he's ready. Maybe. For the TBS.
I am going to push back a little bit. I do think they should wait on starting this tournament until after Full Gear, which isn't too far in the future. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we're getting a world title eliminator tournament leading up to Full Gear, which the finals will be at Full Gear, which is a whole nother ball of wax. And again, we don't need to pontificate on that. It's probably 8 men.
We'll find out on Saturday, I believe.
They're going to announce it on Saturday. Which, good segue, this leads us to the main event of last week's Dynamite, the Casino Royale ladder match for the poker chip, the AEW World Title shot. We knew going in it was Moxley, Archer, Hardy, Andrade, Pac, Orange Cassidy, and the Joker. The Joker turns out to be our long-lost buddy, Hangman Adam Page.
Did you expect that's who the Joker was?
I did think that that's what it was going to be,
did
or that's who it was going to be. I thought it was great when he came back out. He looks great, looks happy, fun to be back. Again, you can never plan a pregnancy is the statement I was going to make, but you actually can plan a pregnancy.
I mean,
and funny story, last week we're sitting on the couch with my son, and my son goes, "Dad, how do you plan to have a baby?" And we haven't had that. We haven't had that talk with him yet, right? So I certainly didn't go, well, there's a stork that shows up, and there's a bundle in his beak, and he leaves him on the front porch. So didn't go that route, but like, it's me, it's my son, and my wife, and we're in a 3-row on the couch. And as I'm dancing around, but also trying to be very transparent in the conversation, my wife's in the background going with the throat slash, like, stop talking about this now. So. Anyway, so back
She's
to Hangman
not ready for her baby to grow up yet.
Well, and so we generally, as a rule of thumb with our daughters, have kind of had this talk when they turn 11. My son won't be 11 until next August. I'm not sure if we can make it that far because the kid likes boobs, right? So like, that's the title of the episode. Two Spot Monkeys Live. The kid likes boobs. Sorry, that'll get us an E rating.
Right? Yeah, we better not do that. But there's your Easter egg for this episode. If we ever go through and pull out, we've talked about like create an open for the show and pull out just sound clips. That feels like it has to be in the open.
Yeah. Yep. I wonder if -1 likes boobs. I'm sure he does. I don't know why I went there. I apologize to listeners. Thank you for the last 15 seconds, and let's just erase that from your memory.
Those of you who stayed with us are saints.
So Paige. Wife has a baby. That's why he had an absence. Again, the timing of that couldn't have probably happened better because you had CM Punk, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, All Out, all these big things. And again, we still got the good Christian Cage, Kenny Omega, issue, mini feud, title challenge. Now he's back in the mix, and getting in this match was crazy. That Deadeye on Pac from the ladder. Holy cow. Like, A, Adam Page's knees, B, Pac's being, like the fact that his soul didn't like leave the mat and ascend to the heavens after he landed on the mat. Good golly. Like that made me really nervous, that spot in the match, and I'm glad that they're seemingly healthy and well after it. Lots of personalities here in this match. Like wow. But yeah, Paige gets the chip in the end, and by virtue of that chip, now seemingly will be the next challenger for Kenny Omega, and that's probably at Full Gear.
I was going to say, and Tony Khan alluded to yesterday, and I haven't read the full article. I just saw the clip or the headline on Twitter, so I probably need to, Crackpot Research Team would talk about him every week. That it sounds like it will be at Full Gear, which is interesting because only a week or two ago, you and I both predicted that Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega would have a world title match at Full Gear. Please, Tony Khan, if you're listening, do not book Omega, Page, and Bryan in a 3-way. Don't do it.
I don't think that they will.
Yeah, but don't do it at pay-per-view. I'm going to go off on a side rant here for 20 seconds. The Ring of Honor Choose Your Experience group we've talked about before. A number of people have been posting their hoped for Final Battle cards because Final Battle has been announced for December 11th. Love it. Great idea. The number of people who are booking multi-man world title matches, I'm like, stop it. Stop it right now. One-on-one. Have a world title match. I don't like when world title matches are multi-man matches for the most part. Unless you tell me a really good story why it has to be those 3 or 4 guys all in the same match. Or you're doing it to protect somebody. Somebody's hurt, maybe the champ's hurt, and so he can't work a full one-on-one match. So you do a 3 or 4 way so that, you can kind of work around that. I understand sometimes you have to. It doesn't appear to be a situation here. Don't do it. You can have that 3-way match someday. That'd be a good match. Don't get me wrong. They'd find a way to make it a fun match, but don't do it a Full Gear. Thanks, Tony Khan. Glad you're listening.
So then the big question for me, as these brackets will come out Saturday, and again, I don't want to begin to go who could be, because again, this is a flipping loaded roster of talent. But
this could be a crazy tournament. I mean, you could book 8 guys into this tournament, and I could book another 8-guy tournament that I'd be like, you forgot all 8 of these guys. What are they doing?
Absolutely. My wondering before we even see who's here, is this going to be how Bryan Danielson gets his shot?
That's my if somebody made me make a prediction today without seeing the brackets, without knowing if he's even in the tournament, although you kind of think he should be. That's my bet. And that's also, if you're not going to do Danielson Omega at Full Gear, that's how you get away from doing Danielson and not have the crowd freaking out that Danielson doesn't have that match. Until they announced the tournament, I thought they would go Danielson Cole, maybe. And that could still be the finals of the tournament, and sign me up. If that's, although I could see some people being upset that it's 2 newcomers, WWE guys, whatever. Shut up. For AEW.
I wanted to add no way that to that opinion. Like these, yes, they were employed by WWE, but we need to get past that as
WWE has released 111 people in the last 3 years. 9 of them have gone to AEW. I think that's the number. Some ridiculous.
The narrative doesn't land anymore. Here's an interesting thought. Did you happen to see the photo that's going around on social media? I believe it was Tony Khan at the game last Sunday for the Jags. He has what appears to be like a program, and he has a notebook. And on that notebook, it's a three or like a spiral bound, and it appears to have a pen written draft card of Full Gear.
I have not seen this photo.
Okay, so it's hard to read because it's so think of just if you were standing 4 feet away from me, 3 feet away from me, and you're holding on to something with something that you wrote in your handwriting. And I don't know if your handwriting is good or not. Regardless of that, we all have our handwriting style. So think of that, and think of it being like held like across the front of his body.
I'm looking at it right now. Yep.
Yep. So you have to kind of like pinch and scroll and make it larger to even think what you're seeing. It looks like Jade Cargill, Thunder Rosa is on that list. It looks like Adam Cole, Christian Cage is on that list. It looks like Kenny Omega and Hangman is on that list. It looks like Young Bucks and Jurassic Express is on that list from what I could see and from what I think I could read.
I've got, they actually have the whatculture.com is what I'm looking at right now. And they have what it said. Like they've deciphered what it says.
Okay.
You want me to read it to you?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Omega versus Page. John Moxley versus Bryan Danielson.
So finals of the tournament then?
It doesn't have any notes for like title or what, but that would make sense to me.
Yep.
Inner Circle versus American Top Team.
Okay.
MJF Darby.
Yep. Yeah.
CM Punk versus Wardlow.
Okay.
Interesting. Punk does seem to be wanting to work with the younger guys right now, which makes okay. Thunder Rosa versus Jade Cargill, Christian Cage versus Adam Cole, Young Bucks versus Jurassic Express, you said. And it says matches for Britt Baker and Cody Rhodes are listed, though their opponents are unclear. The spot next to Baker's name is blank. Rhodes, meanwhile, has 3 options: Malachi Black, Andrade El Idolo, and Miro.
Okay. So I brought that up because when you mentioned the potential thought of Adam Cole versus Bryan Danielson, something that's been in the back of my mind as I've been watching AEW and just thinking about wrestling in just the day-to-day fandom that I have. It's what will be the first loss for the big 3. And I'm calling the big 3 CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole. You could extend that and not arguably not big 3, but Andrade, even though he was in the ladder match and that's considered a loss, not a pinfall loss, and then Malachi Black as well. And I don't know that we need to necessarily dig deep into this conversation today, but I want to like throw that out for something that I think will be a guiding thought of our future conversation. With what you just laid out to me, I don't see Wardlow defeating CM Punk if that match materializes. I don't see John Moxley defeating Bryan Danielson. I think that actually helps Bryan Danielson, not that he needs more validation, but a win over Moxley, who is a current pillar of AEW, to boost Daniel Bryan. Gosh, why am I going to Daniel Bryan today? I don't know why. Bryan Danielson into the shot against Omega that's already been earned by virtue, in my opinion, of the draw. Makes a lot of sense. Moxley probably is the guy second beyond Darby, who I think is Teflon in AEW. A loss does not hurt that talent almost any time. And again, I also see Adam Cole defeating Christian Cage in that space. So I think their winning streaks, singles wise, continue on into the future.
I agree. Yeah, and I think it will be interesting because AEW has done a nice job of protecting guys as they've come in for the most part. If they're at the tippy top, obviously Bobby Fish, lost to Sammy. I'm assuming he's wrestling Bryan Danielson on Saturday on Dynamite. He's not. Bobby Fish didn't get that first win against Bryan Danielson. But talk about a technical. That'll be fun. That'll be really fun to watch. It's funny. Sometimes you can put together a match where I know exactly who's going to win, and I don't care. It's still going to be really fun to watch. And Bryan Danielson, Bobby Fish, who probably have crossed paths at some point in New Japan or somewhere. I don't have that. I had a tab up earlier. We were looking at Danielson Suzuki, also happening Friday night. Talk about that in a second. But I would assume Danielson and Fish have crossed paths, and there's probably somebody yelling at their screen right now about some time that I'm forgetting.
I'm pretty sure they had a match in Evolve, and I'm pretty sure it was amazing.
That sounds like it makes sense to me as well. So, yeah, it's funny. I mean, AEW, goodness gracious, they can just put together stupid matches at this point, stupid amounts of matches that actually Bobby Fish, there he is. Yes, they did. Evolve number 4, in fact, which was titled Danielson versus Fish. So
there's your sign.
I'm pretty sure they had a match. And then a bunch of tags in Noah. I'm sorry, that makes more sense than New Japan if I just stopped and thought about that back in the Noah days, with guys like Kenta and Taiji Ishimori and Ricky Marvin. There's a name I haven't said in years.
They were all on the same side, though, in Noah. So they've only had one match where they've been one-on-one. So this will be the second time ever that they've
connected. And it's been 11 years.
Much like Bryan Danielson Omega a few weeks ago. It was only the second time they've ever met in the ring.
Right. And Danielson Suzuki will be only the second time singles match that they've met in the ring. They've met in some tags before and have also tagged. Well, let's talk about Dynamite just real quick. Dynamite. How about Rampage? We'll do Rampage. We'll do that first. CM Punk, Daniel Garcia, another good Punk match. And you and I both said Daniel Garcia is a star on the rise. Now, at some point with Daniel Garcia, you're going to have to give him a win over somebody that isn't on Dark, or somebody that is, even if the win is on Dynamite, it can't be against fill in Dark jobber here. You got to start giving him some wins, I think. Don't have him beat CM Punk. Now, could Daniel Garcia be the person who eventually beats CM Punk? Sure, but only if you're doing that 8 months to a year down the road. Not that it shouldn't happen Friday, that's for sure. But it didn't hurt Daniel Garcia either to lose to CM Punk. And I like that they went to the Anaconda Vice this time. He used to go to sleep the first couple of matches. I like that he went Anaconda Vice. I thought that made a lot of sense with Garcia because it's a little more mat-based. I thought that was just brilliant. And, hey, we're back to the long tights, which I thought was fun that especially the wrestlers on commentary were kind of busting him a little bit. I don't know if busted chops is the right word, but a little bit on Punk with his long tights versus his trunks. Hey, the man's trying to make sure he can sell some extra action figures, so you got to have a couple different gears, right? Punk is nothing if not a merchandiser. What were your thoughts on that, Matt?
I liked it as well. Due to a number of reasons, I got really behind on watching wrestling last week. So much so where I think there was like the longest stretch of this calendar year where I went from like point A to point B and no watching wrestling in between. A number of factors contributed to that. I had my daughter home from law school for the weekend, lots of other family events going on. And again, the time just wasn't available to watch wrestling. What I am finding is if I don't make it a priority to watch Rampage, even if I don't know what happens, my desire to really get excited to watch it on demand tends to waver. And I don't think that's anything to do with AEW. I think that just has to do with all of the different things that I'm involved in. So that's what I'm going to pin that on. Again, I think there's a little bit, and we've talked about this in the past with AEW, even though I think they've done worlds better than what they were doing when we were at Daly's Place. Knowing that a show is in the can for me does hang a little bit over the head of it and of me. So as we approach Friday, knowing that it's going to be live does change my view of the show. And I want to be really clear. I don't look for spoilers. I have not been spoiled on anything with any pre-taped Rampage to date. So that's not a factor here.
The only thing I've been spoiled, I'm the same way. I do not read Rampage spoilers. Funny thing is, I used to read SmackDown spoilers all the time. So I don't know what that tells you. Back when they were taped. The only thing I've been spoiled on Rampage was Homicide appearing. I didn't know much of what happened, but I knew he appeared.
Yeah. So no, and clearly, like back to your point when we brought up the potential Wardlow match, Punk is definitely working. I mean, the Darby match is a dream match, so that made sense that be where he began. But since then, Hobbs, Daniel Garcia, Seidel, which is not really like a young talent match, but something's there with Leo Rush. So the Seidel match got made because he went to Leo Rush, the LBO. So we have the HFO and the LBO. Anyway,
can I just say, Leo Rush does nothing for me. Like, he's okay in the ring. He's maybe even good in the ring, but I'm so tired. And I know there's some mental health stuff there, and you and I have talked, mental health obviously is super important, and I want Leo Rush to be okay as Lionel Rush, I think is his name. If I remember, like, as a human being, I want the guy to be okay. But this, I'm retired, I'm back, I'm retired, I'm back, I'm in, I'm out, I'm here for 3 weeks, and then you don't see him for 8 months. I don't know. It makes it hard for me to get behind him.
So think back to he pretty much broke onto the scene, like the national scene, quote unquote national, in like 2016, correct? When we were in Dallas, he was focused on that in that Ring of Honor show, didn't he? Have a big match with Jay Lethal.
I think so. That sounds about right.
Okay, so think about like April of 2016 to October of 2021, 5.5 years. And if you were to look back and if you were to use Cage Match and look up Leo Rush and think of see all the ways that he's been active, it is a very non-scripted like path. Guy was in WWE for the longest time. Ring of Honor.
And they didn't use him other than they did for a little while as Cruiserweight champ, and then, Bobby Lashley's mouthpiece and all that. That was dumb. I mean, they used him poorly. Shocking, WWE.
Yeah, and so just really something. So I'm gonna go on the opposite side of your opinion about Rush. He hasn't done anything that makes me dislike him, and I think that the ceiling is high, but he is going to have to deliver here soon. So I don't want to say he doesn't do anything for me because I think I see talent there and I think I see potential, but the execution of that is going to be something that really needs to bear itself out or play out in reality in the months, year to come, what have you.
I will say, though, if Leo Rush can get me more Dante Martin on TV, if they're going to pair those two together, it kind of seems like, they're certainly teasing something there. I'm all for that. Dante Martin is somebody I like a lot. So if that gives him a little more character and a little more something to do, cool. If Seidel comes along for the ride, I'm okay with that. It would certainly be the first time they've given Seidel any story, really with what he's doing other than the whole third eye or whatever weird thing they do there. He does. That's a Matt Seidel thing, not an AEW thing. I did think the promo, though, was a little bit weird setting it up because Seidel was like, look, I'm sick of your crap, Leo. I don't want anything to do with you. So I thought we were setting up like and then Dante's going to turn on Seidel, and Dante's going to go with Leo, and Seidel's and then Leo Rush is like, "I'll get you a match with CM Punk," and he's like, "Absolutely, if you can get me a match with CM Punk, I'm in." Like that was a little bit weird. Like he was totally against everything Leo was doing, and then all of a sudden, like, "Oh, you get me a match with Punk? I love you." Yeah. I'm sure that will play out more though on Friday, so we'll see.
Indeed. Well, and an exciting tag match followed that Punk match on Rampage with and exciting in that I think it's just the scratching of the surface. I'm super high on the Acclaimed. I love Bowens and Caster as a duo. The Acclaimed and the Street Profits are kind of like teams that I wasn't really big on at first, and I thought there might be just one star in the mix, but now that I see more, both guys are equally talented. Again, Max Caster with the freestyle and the rapping is a whole different level. Kind of for me, similar to Montez Ford and his charisma. But again, you can't slight Angelo Dawkins. You can't slight Anthony Bowens. So this match against the Lucha Bros, very good. It fit just nicely where it did on this card. And again, the big question is now as we approach this weekend, the Lucha Bros have the AAA titles on the line, and it's an unnamed masked team. So that's going to be interesting to see. And they're allies, or they're connected somehow in some way to Andrade.
And two things are interesting in that to me. I'm interested. I always love mystery opponents. Like I just think that's fun. Sometimes they're disappointments, but last weekend at AAA, Andrade gained 2 new associates, whatever you want to say, in Ingornopolis, in Dragon Lee and Dralistico, who used to be Mystico, who also used to be the original Sin Cara. If Dragon Lee shows up on AEW, my head might explode. Like I just may not know what to do with that. And if I get to see the Lucha Brothers against Dragon Lee and Dralistico, holy stuff. Now, yeah. I'm also...
And Dragon Lee's on Ring of Honor TV this weekend also. So, right. It's the Rick Rude thing where he's on both shows at the same time.
And I'm not really expecting that because of Dragon Lee's contract with Ring of Honor. And Ring of Honor and AEW have not necessarily opened that forbidden door just yet. And I feel like if they're going to... Now, this wouldn't be necessarily Ring of Honor opening it. It would be Dragon Lee, depending if he has the ability to do that in his contract. But if he doesn't, and it's Ring of Honor doing it, I would think they would do it in a bigger way. I would think you would have, Bandito or somebody, your champion, or the Briscoes, or, something like that if you're going to do that. So I kind of think it's not them. I saw an interesting and it may have been like, it wasn't a website, like it wasn't PW Insider, it wasn't Wrestling Observer, it wasn't Fightful, any of those kind of more reputable news sites. But there was a link that was in my suggested on Facebook that said, could Andrade's tag team be the Authors of Pain? And I was like, well, there's a name I never would have come up with. I don't know why it would be, but I think it also may have been written from can the Authors of Pain do something in pro wrestling? But I last I had heard the reason they haven't done anything in pro wrestling since leaving WWE is they've decided to go back to whatever they were doing before. And so I don't know. I'd love to see him back if that's, if anywhere. He did make a comment that it's not who you think it is, which I don't know that we've been led to know who we think it should be. So, okay. I have no preconceived notions as to who this could be. But I'm excited to see it. And I'm hoping if I don't watch Dynamite, that's on Dynamite, correct?
I think so, yes.
So it's hard to keep that straight sometimes. It is now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know Saturday night what's going to be. So whether I'm going to be able to watch that live or not, I might have to try to stay off social media, though, because that's something where I'd rather not know until I am watching the show and go, oh, it's Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil. I don't know, whatever. I think I'm strong in saying it's not those two guys. There'd be a forbidden door opening. Let's just end that there. Jade Cargill beat Sky Blue. I think we've talked about Jade enough, and Sky Blue, I think, has something, again, a project for AEW. I think she's talented, and I think could be a piece for them down the road. So And then the Philly street fight, Ricky Starks beats Brian Cage. I thought it was a good Philly street fight. I thought it was a good way to end the show in Philly. You know, if you think about how they tape it, that ends the show. I thought that was a strong ender, you know, for them with a street fight, and Starks keeps the title. I think it'll be interesting to see if this is the end, then where do each of them go on? And maybe it's not the end. I don't know. I kind of hope it is, though, because I feel like this has been going on long enough. Like, let's see Brian Cage do something else. Let's see Ricky Starks do something else. I'm ready for this to be over. It's been a good feud, but I'm ready for it to be done.
Yeah, if Inner Circle wasn't getting into what I think is going to be a long-term thing with American Top Team and Men of the Year, you know, Inner Circle Team Taz could be interesting. And Jericho and Taz kind of, you know, maybe teased that, maybe didn't tease that on commentary a little bit during that match. So that would be interesting.
I agree. That would be. Well, so the last thing kind of we want to talk about is Lynn leading into this weekend. We've talked a little bit about this weekend, but especially Friday. Obviously, Friday is Rampage Live. Saturday, as you've mentioned, Saturday is Dynamite Live, which is I'm with you. I love when they're live. Makes them a little more unpredictable. Makes them a little more. You have a little more of that somebody could show up kind of thing, where most likely on a taped show, Homicide showed up. Okay, fine. But like Adam Cole wasn't going to show up on a tape show. Bryan Danielson wasn't going to show up on a tape show. You know, if Bray Wyatt comes into AEW, he's not going to show up on a taped Rampage. He's going to be on live, you know, something. And I'm not suggesting that Bray Wyatt will show up this weekend. I don't think if he had a 90-day, I don't think it's up yet. I think it's right before Full Gear. So the end of the month. But I love the unpredictability. But Friday night, SmackDown decides that because they're going to FS1 for a week because of the ALCS, they're going to add a half an hour and be in a 2.5 hour show. And I believe they've announced, from what our friend Rob had said, Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks for that last half hour. Or he insinuated that it's for the last half hour. Seems to be the main event. Which would go head to head with the first half hour of Rampage on TNT. Tony Khan counterpunches and says, okay, we're going to put a buy-in, which is a weird name when you're not buying Rampage, but a buy-in first hour pre-show, basically just making Rampage a 2-hour show on Friday night. But the first hour is not going to be on TNT. It's going to be on YouTube. Oh, and by the way, we're not only going to do Bobby Fish and Lee Moriarty, which sounds crazy. We're going to do Bryan Danielson and Minoru Suzuki on YouTube on Friday night.
Yeah, if you ever were like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know which show I'm going to pick. Like, with what's been happening lately, how would you not go, shoot, that's cool?
I can tell you, I think you and I talked before we recorded. My wife and I watch a show on Netflix that comes back on Friday. Most likely going to be binging that Friday night a little bit because I know that's what she would like to do. And I think that's, and I would like to too, because I enjoy that show as well. If by chance we're not watching that show, and I am watching, there's zero question at 8 o'clock my time, 9 o'clock your time. Even if I were watching SmackDown live, it's being recorded. I'll catch the last hour and a half later. I'm going to YouTube. Like Bryan Danielson and Minoru Suzuki, they have met one time one-on-one. It was in 2004. I believe you said Danielson made comment that there is no video footage of that match.
I don't think Danielson. Oh no, maybe Danielson did say that, or someone else. Someone else had alluded to like that. They're confident there was a like a hard cam probably set up, but it wasn't like this was before New Japan World, right? So
right,
not it wasn't streamed anywhere.
I wonder if it's available on New Japan World now. I don't have New Japan World anymore, but anyways, so there may or may not be footage of this match. Crazy. They're going to beat each other up, and it's going to be fun, and I'm going to love it. And then you give Bobby Fish and Lee Moriarty, which is going to be a really fun match too. Moriarty, obviously a new signee to AEW and an upcoming star. Fish, you know, the grizzled veteran, the grizzled old veteran, perhaps, not grizzled young veteran. And then on Rampage, I think you got Punk and Seidel. I can't remember now. I used to have those lineups in front of me, and I
The
don't anymore.
Lucha Bros match that we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Well, that's on Dynamite.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize. I jumped ahead.
But you've got a crazy lineup on Rampage as well. And then you got a crazy lineup on Saturday night for Dynamite as well. Just seriously, AEW puts out cards, and every week there's one match like Darby and Nick Comoroto for this last week, for instance, where I go, okay, but that's going to be used to further a story probably, and whatever. But then the rest of the card, I'm like, pay-per-view match, pay-per-view match, pay-per-view match. Like, just insane to me what they can put out right now. And he's got so many, and there's going to be more people coming in. There's going to be more stars who get made, as far as like the Daniel Garcias of the world who are going to get elevated, and the Jungle Boys of the world who are already elevated but are going to go even higher. Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky obviously are getting a really featured spot now with American Top Team. Junior that's happening on Rampage. The Inner Circle, Sammy, Chris Jericho, and Jake Hager versus the Men of the Year, and Junior Dos Santos making his pro wrestling debut. I was a big Dos Santos fan back in the UFC days when he was a heavyweight, kingpin. We had a UFC fantasy league at that point that we were running, and Dos Santos was a beast in that league for a while there. So I think it'll be fun to see him. I thought the punches he was throwing on, whether that was Wednesday or Friday, I get them all mixed up, looked fine. I thought what he did looked good. I'm excited to see that on Friday. I mean, holy smokes. It's just crazy. It's crazy what AEW can lay out there right now. Just crazy. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Crazy.
That's a very fair, and again, building on the crazy, we're just lucky. We are just so lucky and fortunate to have this, to be in this time. And I really don't want to take it for granted at all. So when I say like it's hard for me to make sure I'm making time, like, wrestling isn't my entire life. I'm not I don't get paid to watch wrestling, write about wrestling. Would be awesome. So someone's out there listening and wants to say, hey, I know that you're really cool in the nonprofit space. We'd love to offer you this position over here. I'll listen. I'll entertain that offer.
But both spot monkeys will listen to that offer. So
yeah, precisely. Probably not the reality of my life. So you have to be mindful with your disposable time and the things you're investing into. And as much as I would love to have that be 1,000% wrestling, some days, not every day, because you'd burn out. AEW is clearly a spot where, as we've talked about many times, is worthy and deserving of our time and attention. And they are returning fans to the, I hate to say glory days because everyone's glory days are different, but like the reasons why you love pro wrestling and connect to the energy and the passion, they're building on that and they're giving it to you.
Yeah, they're returning your investment tenfold. You investing your time, they're making it worth it. And we've talked about it before, and no reason to belabor it, but there's the struggle with WWE. I don't want to give them 3 hours of my time to watch Raw, because in the end, I don't feel like it was a good use of my 3 hours. I'll give AEW 3 hours of my time every week with 2 hours of Dynamite, 1 hour Rampage, or 4 hours this week, whatever. I don't watch Dark and Dark Elevation. I just don't have the time. I think they've done some nice jobs of making stories happen on those shows and making them not just squash match. So kudos to them for doing that. But I just don't have time. But I'll give them 3 hours of my time, because in the end, I'm happy I did that. I enjoy those 3 hours. And it's not quite 3 hours because I can fast forward commercials. But
yeah, time well spent.
Right. So I'm loving it. Well, as we move forward, next week, we are going to be recording on Wednesday night, late Wednesday night, probably around 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern. So if you want to join us live on YouTube, that will be an option for you. So somewhere around 10 o'clock, we won't be able to pinpoint exactly the moment, but keep an eye on our YouTube. Click that notification bell on our YouTube page. It'll tell you when we go live if you want to. So that'll pop up for you. If you want to join us live on Wednesday night, we are going to be, I don't know if you're going to want to join us for this, but we're going to be making picks for Crown Jewel and maybe having just a moment of conversation, not making picks, but about Halloween Havoc that'll be coming up before we record that again. Might be worth a quick conversation around anything we're excited about for that. Tom, I know you haven't seen NXT. I haven't finished NXT from this week, but obviously the build is well in play and well in line, or well happening. I don't know what the word I want there is. It's happening. They're building for Halloween Havoc. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And 10-year-olds like, well, anyways, we won't go there again. So we'll probably touch on Halloween Havoc next week, but the crux of it will be our head-to-head picks. They will be counting for our head-to-head competition for Crown Jewel, which is happening the next day. So that we'll try to get that out on the podcast feed before Crown Jewel goes out as well. Join us then for those picks. Tom, anything else you want to talk about or say here before we sign off?
Yeah, just joking back to folks who are listening who may hear this before next Wednesday. You may recall the last time that we recorded late. I think it was a good episode. I know it was a good episode. At the same time, it's late on the East Coast. It's late in the Midwest. So if you want to hear Delirious Tom, you may want to tune in live.
That's right. And when I say next Wednesday, you never know when somebody might be listening to this. I should say that'll be Wednesday, October 20th. So for anybody who's listening to this in the year of our Lord 2021. So if you happen to be listening to this in 2025, I don't know why you are, but thank you. We appreciate you downloading as well, even 4 years from now. But yes, so Wednesday, October 20th, 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific, I guess, if we have anybody out there who's listening to us. But join us if you'd like to on live and interact with us in the comments. That'd be great. It's always fun to get some comments or questions or even digs at us. We're okay. We can take them. So thanks for joining us, though, everybody. Have a great week. Enjoy some wrestling. Enjoy Rampage. Enjoy SmackDown. If you're excited about SmackDown, cool. Enjoy the King of the Ring and the Queen's Crown tournament. Yeah, well, maybe we'll talk about more of that when we talk about Crown Jewel next week, since I think those finals are happening there. We can hit on that later. But have a great week. Everybody stay safe. We'll talk to you next week.